to start off real quick with embargoes because it's bullshit. I can't believe like Kotaku and Polygon of all people broke the press embargo on like the review stuff because that's something you enter a contract with. And I don't know, do embargoes even matter anymore? Like, what do you guys think on that?
I mean,
So
I'm not surprised that Kotaku broke it, honestly.
yeah,
No, I
Kotaku
don't think
has
anyone
no
does.
journalistic ethics at all.
Pretty much like any Gawker media.
Yeah, Polygon is not that bad, but at the same time, I wouldn't call them as professional as like maybe GameSpot or some of the other. I wouldn't rank. They're kind of in between Kotaku and the more professional outlets.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I mean,
it's a scummy thing to do, and it very fitting for Kotaku. I didn't expect Polygon to do that, but at the same time, I'm not all that surprised. I'm interested and excited to see the ramifications for them.
Yeah.
Well, if from what I've seen of people doing this before, the ramifications are you're not going to get review copies anymore.
That's what I'm hoping. That would be a nice punishment. I mean, they really shouldn't have done that. I get the guy who bought it early. He's not a news source. It's not his job to. He doesn't have embargo dates, and he paid a huge amount of money for it. I get that.
He did.
For these guys, they were given a copy for free and said, please don't put out anything about this until this date. And they said, screw you. We're just going to do it anyways. That's incredibly unprofessional, especially for such a giant game for this year.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's not one of those games where if you spoil something, and we talked about it the other time we talked about this, but basically, it's not like really a game where if you spoil, one thing or two things, it's a problem. But they did a full review, basically explaining every aspect that they had
They
seen.
did
at
a
that
Facebook
point.
Live of it as well, so they were showing and streaming things.
See,
Yeah,
I
they were
didn't
just
know about
streaming
that
it
part.
and everything.
That's
Yeah.
pretty big. I mean, granted, you're not going to run into the same exact planets with 18 quintillion planets and such, but it's still kind of scummy to show, for better or worse, there's some sort of intro, there's some sort of initial training. They're kind of taking that away from the player if they chose to watch their live stream or
Now,
it happened to be there.
I don't remember if the patch had come out at this point when they started streaming this, or if the patch was just about to come out. Do you remember?
I think it was before the patch came out, because this was before it had actually released. And
So if it's
the patch
before the
was day
patch,
one.
then it's like that's even more scummy, because then you're showing off this thing like it's the final product when that patch changed so much. And that had to have been why the embargo date was on there, so they could get that patch out and get all the
And
last
then have a
minute
different
features
thing
in.
there, right?
Yeah, it's not like they were trying to do something malicious and we're like, hey,
Hide-
let's
like,
hide this
hey, let's
shitty
hide that
game
it's a
behind an
shitty-
embargo.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
Which
hey,
is
guess what? We've
that's
got a
used for a
huge-
lot, but
Yeah, most of the
here
time
it
it's like
was legitimate.
if you see really strict embargoes, a lot of times the first thing you jump to is like, oh, it's a shitty game. They don't want people to know it until they buy it. But it's like in this case, that day one patch added and changed so much that it was like they needed an embargo if they were going to be able to, get an honest review out of people.
Yeah, those were some massive changes that came in with the patch.
Yeah,
and that was actually surprising. It makes me wonder if maybe like I'm gonna guess it's not Polygon, but maybe Kotaku got some leak or a lead saying, hey, we're gonna do a major patch tomorrow. If you don't get this out, it's going to be a completely different game by tomorrow. Sorry you worked so hard on this. Fuck you. So maybe they said, you know what? Fuck you. We're putting it out anyway. So they may have broke the embargo because they knew the patch was coming. And then it was kind of like, let's put this out there. And then now they have to look at it and say, well, we put out a review for a game that wasn't the actual game. But fuck it, it's out there,
Yeah, which
Well,
again,
that makes
is a
them look
scummy thing
doubly
to do.
bad.
Like
it
that,
does.
That
Because
makes
on
game
top of-
developers not want to give them review copies if they know they're going to screw them over like that. So,
Yeah, and on
hope they
top
get
of
what's coming to
having,
them, honestly.
on top of breaking the embargo and pissing off the publisher, you now have an outdated review that isn't accurate.
yeah.
That is for a different game that isn't out there. That's what a bizarre thing to do.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's not anything new because specifically Kotaku and I guess some other media as well, like they'll break things just because they get the information. And there's like one specific writer, I think, for Kotaku that's always defending that it's journalism at that point. But if you, outside of journalism, outside of like freedom of speech, if you make a deal with someone, I think you're having trust with that person is more important than being the first guy to say, oh, Assassin's Creed next year is beaten Egypt or some shit like that. Like, there's integrity to journalism on top of just, breaking the news. Because if you break the news, you have enough readers, they're going to come fucking read it anyway. They're not going to be like, oh, we broke it last. Fuck you, man. Going to Polygon now. Like, they're going to still read you if they're Kotaku readers, if they're Polygon readers. Like, that's what they do.
Well, on top of that,
Yeah.
it's like they leak all this stuff, and some of it's legitimate, some of it's not. A lot of times they really don't check much on they don't do any fact checking. They just say, oh, we heard this, so we're going to report it. I don't care whose life it ruins, but we're going to report it. And they really aren't games journalists, they're bloggers. That's really what it comes down to. I don't know if you've read a lot of their articles. I had them in my RSS feeds for maybe like 6 months or so.
Yeah.
And just the garbage that would come through. Some of the writers will actually write articles, and some of them just write total garbage. There was one that was about an update to the Chipotle app that was the greatest thing of all time.
What?
And it spends several paragraphs just talking about how the Chipotle app was perfect, and then they stopped updating it, and it was really sad because they stopped updating it, but it was perfect, so it didn't matter. Then they came out with an update, and it didn't say anything about what was in the update. It was just celebrating the fact that it was getting updates, and they didn't. What kind of bullshit?
Is this still out
This
there?
was a serious long article. And then
Yeah.
they had they would post several articles that would just be like 1 sentence long of just like, oh, what are y'all playing right now? Oh, I'm so bored. Some dude said, I'm so bored at work. And that's what the article was. And that was it. It's total garbage.
It's easy to throw out the term like clickbait when you're talking about certain types of websites, but that's exactly what Kotaku is. It's how can we get people to click on this for 5 seconds so we get ad revenue?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if there's any substance or truth to it. Let's just report it like it's actual news, and then people will click on it. Doesn't matter if they figure out it's bullshit. We got them to click on it.
I mean, it's hilarious though that I don't know, that Chipotle app's in my head though. Like I can't even imagine if he's talking about like how good of a shit it makes him have or some shit. Or
I think that was
like,
the
what
day I
the hell?
unsubscribed from Kotaku.
I
I think that was the one that did it.
What the heck, dude?
What the heck?
And I used to check Kotaku actually pretty often,
Yeah.
just because the quality depended on who was writing the article and what they were writing about. But it wasn't uncommon to find some good quality stuff in Kotaku, and nowadays it's just pure clickbait. There's nothing there.
Well, honestly, at this point, if anything, if they leak anything or actually write anything original that's any good at all, somebody else is going to report on it and source them, and that's really all you need to do to get any of Kotaku's good articles. Just wait for somebody else to source it.
That's basically it. But I don't know. I mean, they broke it, and like you said, that update did come out. So I mean, it. Just putting that aside, like I'm pretty angry about the embargo thing, but I gotta. Whew, I can talk about that for a good 20-30 minutes. But I mean, No Man's Sky is out on PS4 now, I guess. So like, you guys saw like everyone's getting it, right?